Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one is titled, Girlfriend Cheats with Stepbrother. I Ruin Her Life. Short backstory. I work for a company where I travel a lot with my stepbrother, and a few months ago I convinced my girlfriend to hop on with us. We have a long chain of command, but I am their direct boss. This job also drug tests. The main story. My girlfriend joined up with us and was able to complete 2 jobs, each job site being 3 months long, with us. I noticed something off with her halfway through the first job. She was constantly going over to my stepbrother's hotel room to smoke weed with him. I don't do that, so she couldn't smoke with me. After the completion of the first job, I knew something was definitely going on and confronted her about it. She brushed it off as me being jealous. A few days ago she was forced to tell the truth, or her best friend would tell me. She had been cheating on me with multiple different guys at each job site, one of them being my stepbrother. The revenge. As soon as I heard this, I began seeing red. I instantly started plotting my revenge. I called up my boss and told them that my ex-girlfriend and my stepbro lied on their drug test. They were retested and failed. Both of them lost their jobs. Next, I left an anonymous tip to the police about their less than legal habits. Lone Star State carries a heavy penalty, fine for this stuff. They got busted and charged with a misdemeanor. Now for the finale. I informed her family of her actions and they completely shut her out. They liked me more. Now they are both thousands of miles from home, with no job, no money. She can't afford the payments on her brand new car, a criminal charge, and she has nowhere to go home to. Next one is titled, Manager of another department made a snarky comment about me in front of my boss, so I had their department eviscerated. I'm manager of a small department in my company. A department I work closely with has been using a system that has been costing the company almost $500,000 over the last few years in misallocated work hours. They even hired 4 additional people in spite of my protests. I've complained about this before, even bringing it to the attention of the head of their department, who cleared some changes, which were then ignored by the manager. This manager had tried to combat my complaints by complaining about my own department, which is managed better than any similar department in the country, confirmed by a QA employee who got sick of my crap and tried to find a drop-in replacement for my systems, which they couldn't. They even called the best college in the country to compare my system to theirs, and mine is 6 times more efficient. Not bragging, just painting a picture. So the other manager was hanging around in my department chatting with my boss and a couple other people, not wearing a face mask. I asked why she was there at all, never mind not following the company's COVID policies. She replied by making a snarky personal comment about me in front of everyone. She smirked. I walked away because I was very angry and not able to come up with anything good at the moment. I went home and spent 8 hours writing a proposal and work instruction that explained clearly how much money was being wasted and how to fix it. I caught my boss's boss, who I'm not really even supposed to talk to, in the hallway and gave it to her. My boss's boss read it and decided to push the changes through without consulting the other managers, knowing that the CEO would back her up and no one would go to the president to protest lest he find out how much money had been wasted. Now their 6 employees are going to be refocused on other things or moved to other more useful positions, possibly under my supervision, and I'm being given 80% of their square footage to use as I see fit. Wear your mask and don't ducking duck with me. Next one is titled, Finally Petty Revenge After a Year of Hard Work from Incapable Manager. I started working at my current work, which is a law firm, in October 2019. I was given a 6-month temp contract, and whilst I was happy with it at first, this began to change. When I started there were 6 of us in my team, 3 including me being coordinators. My first week of work both coordinators went on sick leave, maternity leave, which left my manager to train me. I quickly came to realize that my manager, who is painfully awkward and shy, doesn't know how to do any of the coordinators' work, and instead of proper training I was told being thrown into the deep end is the best way of learning, and was told to play around with the systems to learn. I started to really dislike my job as it was dull, and there is a support call center who put calls through at random but are not the politest of people, which started to take a toll on me, and by the 4th month of work 3/6 team members had left, which they had let me know was because of the incapability of the awkward manager. As my manager was then needing me, otherwise the department would collapse, I agreed to stay but was looking elsewhere for jobs, but I was just waiting for the 6 months to end so my agency would find me a new job. Then, Corona happened. By this time, the team was just me and my manager. Due to only working with one person who is awkward and hard to speak to, I felt pretty bored and isolated with my job. When I'd have meetings with him, there would be 20 seconds of silence between each of his points, and speaking to him is painfully uncomfortable, so it was easier for us to not chit-chat generally. As a result of basically the entire team leaving, my workload quadrupled. Having really disliked my job for months, and then having work piled onto me was exhausting. I'd have to finish work hours after my finishing time just to get everything done and in working order, and when I asked for overtime payment, my manager shrugged it off, saying that I don't have to stay doing extra work, even though if I didn't do extra it would only impact my own work. On my half-year review after working up to it, I asked if I could have a pay rise due to doing 4 times the work and as I am working more than my contracted hours. His response to this? "Oh, we don't do pay rises really." That was shut down and wasn't mentioned again. Fast forward to October, there had been a team member on our team who had been on sick leave for the last 2 years. I'd been told she had worked 2 out of the 8 years that she was working there. She then worked for 12 weeks and then went back on sick leave, which ducked everyone over and again put all the pressure on me. All whilst doing so much more work, I have been awaiting endometriosis surgery, which has been agonizing to say the least. 2 weeks ago I received a call from the hospital who let me know that a cancellation has popped up and I could be operated on the very next week. I signed off on the 7th and have been given a month to recover. To my manager, saying I haven't been doing more work since I started and not compensating overtime. Good luck. You're gonna need it. Next one is titled, "My Wholesome Revenge Went Farther Than I Expected." My high school climbing team has this tradition of getting the entire rock gym to sing team members happy birthday with the condition that they have to announce it or have someone else rat them out. Then there's no escaping the public attention. At this point I am the longest running team member with about 5 years on the team. Now, I do love to celebrate my birthday, but I customarily do it with my small friend circle and don't announce it to the world. I am an introvert, so I have managed to not tell anyone what my birthday is, and if someone asked I told them and they would forget by the time it came around. Another detail is for the past several years my mental health was really struggling and had become pretty self-destructive. A couple of years ago my current climbing belay partner joined the team, who also has baking as one of their major hobbies, important later. This person takes it as some sort of personal mission to keep my mental health up. They also find out that I've never had the birthday treatment and that a simple passing date on the year I graduate simply wouldn't do. At this point I take it as a joke and make it a challenge for them to find my birthday. Well, my belayer found it. Turns out another teammate had it written down from a few months ago. Oops. So my assumptions of staying in the background fail me and my partner gets the coach in on it. There's a whole baking segment and a card along with the usual attention, and it's a big event, being my last birthday before graduating high school. Honestly, as much as I'm not into mass attention, it was a really great gesture and chilled the depression I would later feel about leaving. Now here's the part where I get my revenge. Because no good deed is left unpunished. The following summer is the one with all the protests and BLM and such. My friend decides to use their baking hobby to run a small bake sale for a local native organization, can't remember the name. It's not huge, just some online orders they will then deliver and donate the profits. This is my chance to get back. My mom has a pretty big social network. I leaked to her that my friend is having this bake sale and she sends the link to a bunch of people. I'm expecting just a few more orders to get the bake sale some traction. This is when things got out of control. My mom had more friends than I realized and the bake sale took off. My friend gets a few $100s in orders and spend the next week straight just baking. When they donate, the leader of this organization asks about this large donation. After finding out about the bake sale, they want to meet and do an interview. The interview makes it to a small local news article. Not a big one, but enough for a bakery to take notice and offer my friend a job if they want to enter baking professionally. Their family gets all excited and it's still a running joke between us. So yeah, my friend gave me a birthday, so I accidentally got them a news article. Next one is titled, "You want to wait right there? Fine with me." So I work at a restaurant that specializes in cheesecake. Yes, that one. So, normally I work the curbside, to-go positions. I'll either be bagging orders or running them out to the cars. One afternoon, this lady pulls into the curbside parking that we have out front and I run outside to get her name. "Oh, I just placed my order like 30 seconds ago," she says to me. I've dealt with people like this before, so I just regurgitate, "Oh, that's okay. Can you just park somewhere else while we prepare your order? These spots have a 10-minute parking limit. We'll send you a text message when it's ready and you can come back around." Now, the thing with these curbside spots that we have in front of our restaurant is that they are literally in front of the restaurant, so we have a continuous stream of cars that park there and get their orders, as well as mall traffic that goes right alongside it, basically creating some sort of choke point. I've parked here for longer before and no one has ever said anything. At this point in the day, I wasn't gonna deal with it because it was too early. So I just said, "It's just something that we are trying to enforce because we get a lot of traffic through here and it's to make things run more smoothly." She said, "Okay, I'll move. Don't worry," and then proceeded to just stare at her phone. She did not move from that spot at all. So I just let it be. But I made that woman wait. Her order was actually ready probably like 12 minutes after she pulled in, but I made her wait 45 minutes. I attended to cars that pulled in behind her and cars that tried to go around her. And every time she asked if her order was ready, I'd say, "They're just waiting on one item. It'll be right out." But no, she stayed in that spot for 45 minutes. When I decided she had had enough, I ran her order out. I made sure it was reheated so that she didn't suspect anything. My coworkers loved the pettiness and I still tell that story probably once a week. Next one is titled, "Can't Stop Stealing My Food? Enjoy Some Dog Food." Sophomore housing at my university consisted of 7 students in a tiny 3-bedroom dormitory, with a small common space, kitchenette and single bathroom. At the end of freshman year I managed to organize a pretty decent group of guys to live with, but due to several summer dropouts, we ended getting several transfer students. Things were sometimes tense, but the original guys usually managed to keep the peace. The biggest ongoing challenge was theft of food. Our private snacks and instant meals were constantly disappearing. Every few weeks we would take turns asking the newer students to not eat our food, but it kept disappearing. Cue petty revenge. I sometimes volunteered at a pet store that sold dog treats that looked like Oreos. I started buying 2 to 3 at a time and leaving them in the kitchen cabinet. Every time they disappeared, I replaced them, always leaving them in the original clear plastic wrapping with pink dog stickers on it. After a few months I asked a roommate if he had seen any of the cookies in cabinet. He said, "Yeah, they tasted like crap." I replied, "That's because they were dog food. Quit stealing our food. Problem solved." Last one is titled, "I'm Not Your Meal Ticket." Well, this story starts out like quite a few others have. I, being in the US Army, become attracted to a woman whom I end up marrying. At first, she's all I could ever ask for in a woman. Sweet, caring, one hell of a cuddler. Doesn't really like video games like I do, but makes an effort to get into them so we can spend time together doing something we both enjoy. Let's call her TC for short, for reasons you will soon know. I met TC through one of the other soldiers I worked with, who we will call BB, Battle Buddy, since he was not at fault in this. It was in the middle of the week, and I had just gotten a work order finished up and was taking a quick break for a drink of water. I heard BB asking a few other soldiers if they were open for a date for this coming weekend. Now, I knew from a few other friends that BB was straight, so I was curious as to why he was asking. Long story short, BB had a female friend who was looking for a date for a movie that coming weekend. I offered to go with his friend, big mistake, and she and I hit it off rather well, and continued to see each other. Months pass, it hasn't been enough time for me to consider marriage yet, but she has some spontaneous ailments, seizures, and they were legit, spring up out of nowhere. Since these only seemed to happen in her sleep, and my command wouldn't let me stay off post with her without being married. We got a courtroom wedding 2 weeks later. The added bonus? Not only could I stay with her while she slept to be ready in case of another episode, but my TRICARE would fully cover her medical costs. I was happy, she was happy. I got to tell my command, now you can't stop me from staying with her, and we all lived happily ever after. Except we didn't. Things went well for a while, as I described at the beginning of the post, but after a bit, I started noticing things. Things like her needing to take her mother to the doctor's office quite frequently. Her mother was sickly, so I didn't think much of it at first, or needing to head to the Walmart one town over because the one in our town didn't have what she needed in stock. Things like the car I bought and let her use seen parked in a lot next to several different trailer parks in a month. Well, as luck would have it, right as I started to get suspicious, I came down on orders to PCs to Korea. So, sidelining the investigation until I was able to continue, I packed, kissed my wife goodbye, and let the army send me where they wanted me. I spent a year in Korea, then came down on orders for Texas. I went there. It was there that I found out exactly what was going on, courtesy of her mom, brother, and her aunt and uncle. This woman was sleeping with 60, not even kidding in the slightest, different men, most of them soldiers. Her excuse to her family was, Master is gay, and doesn't want to come out. So, he's pointing out the men I can sleep with, since he knows that they're clean. So, basically, this woman is using me as a paycheck and meal ticket, and screwing everything with a pulse that happens to be male. The icing on the cake is that 2 weeks after I get the good news, she calls me and confesses to cheating on me, once. The only reason she confessed? She was pregnant. There was no way I could be the father, given that I was in a different state at the time and the father was African American. I am very much not African American, having been called neon white on more than one occasion due to my Irish ancestry. So, there was no possible way this child would look like me, at all. So, my wife felt the need to break the news to me before she had the baby, because she could no longer hide it. Well, things happened. I went back home, without her knowing, and removed my belongings from the house I bought, to keep her from selling them once she realized what I was about to do, and started divorce proceedings. This is revenge number 1. I saw her boyfriend, not the baby's father, new guy entirely, driving my car. So, I enlisted the help of her aunt and uncle to get my car back. They pulled up behind him in a parking lot, got out and talked to him normally, at which time I waked up from the other side of the parking lot. Her uncle asked to see the keys, and upon receiving them, began taking the car key off of the ring, and waved me forward. I walked up, took the car key from him, looked at the guy, and said, "Hi, my name is Master, and this is my car. I'm taking it now." I waved him over to the sidewalk, removed everything from the car that didn't have my name on it, left the items with him, then got in my car and drove off. I found out later that day that he had packed everything and left her. Apparently, he had been living in my house, eating my food, sleeping in my bed, and wearing my clothes. Plus, she had been using the money I sent her every month to pay for his court costs and child support costs. Well, months went by, our court date came up, and my lawyer recommended that I file for sole use of the vehicle and the property, since it was obvious that she had committed adultery and didn't have a leg to stand on. We go to court, she counter-files for the exact same, and since she refused to release the results of a paternity test, I get stonewalled. The exact words used by the judge were, "I'm sorry, but without proof of paternity of the child, I cannot, in good conscience, approve either of these motions." So, we set a new date for a private hearing with the judge, and we wait. Nearly 3 months go by, and the court date was finally near. I walked into the courthouse, met up with my lawyer, who had a demonic glint in his eye at the time, and I was about to find out why, went into the courtroom, and waited. 20 minutes later, she walked in, shot me a dirty look, which I did my best to ignore, and sat down. The judge came in 5 minutes later, the court was called to order, and the divorce trial commenced. Here, I found out just what had given my lawyer the twinkle in his eye earlier on. He proceeded to ask TC a series of questions, including, "Is my client the father of your child? When was the child conceived? Where was my client during the time at which your child was conceived? Do you know who the father of your child is? Have you received child support from the father of your child? Basically, he questioned her into a legal corner in which she either had to answer truthfully, or lie and suffer the legal ramifications of perjury in the face of easily provable evidence. She answered truthfully, lucky for her, and the court case continued. She presented her argument, littered with dirt she was trying to throw on me, insults to my person, questions about my sexual orientation, and claims that I was having a relationship with her 18-year-old cousin. I, falling back on my military training, simply sat up straight, folded my hands in front of me on the table, and stared at a spot on the wall slightly above the judge's left shoulder. I answered every question asked of me, offered no personal opinions, threw no dirt, and refused to sink to her level and question her sexuality. Subsequently, she had a more and more confused look on her face as I refrained from bad-mouthing her like she was doing me, and the divorce trial went by rather fast. At the conclusion of the trial, the judge looked over the paperwork submitted one last time, then looked to the both of us. Are there any closing remarks or claims that need to be made? TC made one last parting swipe about me currently living with her aunt and uncle. I had rented my own apartment months ago, after finishing my military time and going back home, and I merely shook my head and resumed staring at the wall. The judge took one last look over the papers, set them down, and spoke the greatest words I have ever heard in my life. Well, looking over the evidence and testimonies presented, there really is only one decision I can come to. Mr. Frismaster, I am approving your motions for exclusive use of the vehicle and property, upon undeniable evidence of adultery. Mrs. Frismaster, the only one of your motions I am granting today is your request for a no-contact order, and that is more for Mr. Frismaster's benefit than your own. You seemed very combative and willing to cause him legal damage that he was not due, and your repeated attempts to overtalk me while I was reviewing the paperwork did not speak well of you. You no longer have a claim to either the property or the vehicle, and will not contact Mr. Frismaster unless it is to have him clarify which items do not belong to you. TC had the audacity to work up a sniffle and ask the judge, but where do I go? What do I do for a place to live? The judge looked back at her and replied, well, Mrs. Frismaster, you have 30 days to figure that out, after which you will not set foot on that property again, or else you will be held in contempt of court. Thanks for listening.